Hello everyone. So my project topic is exploring haptics feedback for visually impaired, and my project is guided by Professor Anirudh Joshi. In today's increasingly digital world, access to information is vital for everyone. However, visually impaired individuals often face significant challenges when it comes to engaging with digital content, especially in public spaces. And I wanted to address this accessibility gap by leveraging haptic feedback technology. So, David Eagleman's work on sensory substitution has demonstrated the incredible adaptability of the human brain in processing information from alternative sensory modalities. And this inspired me to explore how we can harness this technology to provide a sensory substitute for these people. Haptics, as many of you may be familiar with, is a form of non-verbal touch-based communication. We commonly experience haptics through devices like our smartphones or game controllers, where vibrations provide feedback and enhance our interactions with digital interfaces. So my initial brief was to explore Vibrotactile display to help visually impaired to engage with digital text through haptic feedback translation. So a lot of questions arised through this brief, like what types of haptic patterns can be used to represent different characters, words, or sentences, let's say, or what part of the body can be effectively used so that it don't hinders with the other functions, normal functions of the body. So to address these issues and so to address these questions, I did some literature review in the field of haptic feedbacks, its applications as communication, and its usage for visually impaired. This literature review revealed several key findings. Firstly, there is a growing body of research highlighting the potential of haptic feedback as an effective medium for conveying information and enhancing user experiences. However, I also identified a critical gap in the literature. While many studies have focused on the haptic navigation and spatial perception for visually impaired individuals, there is a limited research especially exploring the use of haptics for interactive communication and textual information access. And the research which is happened on this area is primarily focusing on using majorly fingers as a point of interactions, because they are the most sensitive part of the body. So I decided to explore the other parts of the body which are less engaged so that it doesn't interfere with other daily activities. So I chose forearm of the non-dominant hand for my study, because like it is easily accessible, it has minimal interference from external factors, and it has sufficient area to accommodate multiple vibration motors. And research have shown that less less 2 point discrimination threshold than other accessible parts that I was looking for, like upper arm and calf, etc. So, to define the scope of the project, my project is broadly divided into three parts. Like, firstly, building the device, in which I explored the design patterns, the electronics, and building the phone application and the ecosystem for the device. The training, like building the protocol, how will I train the users to make them familiar with the product, and lastly evaluating and testing like how efficient this method is. So for building the device, I used this particular pattern, like 4 into 3 grid, in which there are 3 rows A, B, C, and in each row there are 4 motors, which also signifies 4 different directions, which is like the top, bottom, right, and left. And if we talk about the electronics, like all these motors are actually controlled by this Arduino, and the triggers are sent through mobile Android based applications via Bluetooth signal. So these are some of the images for of the prototype that I built. And so after building this device, I firstly did a preliminary study where I directly transmitted Braille script into these 6 cells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it didn't work well because as you know, the resolution of this particular part of the body is very low, and it was very difficult for people to identify which particular motor was vibrating at that time. So I went on redefining my project brief, and now I wanted to check like how many uh, how many characters, distinguishable characters I can like effectively transmit through this particular arrangement on this part of the body. So if we talk about Roman alphabets, there are 26 alphabets, and like we only need 4.7 bits to effectively transmit those characters, and if we round off, it will come out to be 5 bits. But here, as you can see in our sleeve, like there are 12 bits available, and we can like transmit 4096 characters through this particular arrangement. But like not every pattern can be encoded, because like not every pattern will be distinguishable. So my research question now is like, how many bits of information can be effectively encoded and transmitted through the haptic sleeve arrangement in the area between the wrist and elbow, that is forearm area. So this is the methodology that I used. So firstly, like I made my participants to train and like get familiar with the device. So I made them sense, firstly I made them sense the rows and columns. So this is A band, this is B band, and this is C band. Then there are 4 columns, like the top column, then the bottom column, this is right column, and this one is left column. And after doing that, like I made them sense individual actuators like one at a time, and I also allowed them to uh, feel the vibration from the other hand to get the clarity and all. And then I, according to their need, like I randomly triggered some motors and let them guess and like touch and feel to get extra clarification and all. So after that, I conducted my experiment. So I made a pattern library with 2 motors and 3 motors at a time, and I so from patterns from the pattern library were transmitted to the participants from mobile application for 3 seconds. Then user were asked to identify these addresses, exact addresses of the vibration. So around like out of so many permutation and combination, around like 50 such patterns were tested with the participants. So how did I collect the data? So this is a basic data cell looks like, and this data sheet is meant for now, like it's meant for 5 users. So as you can see in this particular array pattern, like this motor and this vibration motor will be triggered, and uh, how will be taking the data or noting the data is like there are 4 conditions for C3. Like if they correctly mentions that C3 was triggered, then it will be green, and if only column is identified, suppose they say B3, then the color will be orange or orange. And if only row is identified, let's say they will say C4, then there'll be a yellow color. And if both of them were wrong, like if they say B2 and then both of them are wrong, then it will be red. So I conducted a pilot study based on this method, and I conducted the study with 2 participants, and both participants were actually visually abled, and they were like single and double actuation points were tested for this particular study. So some inference. So I did not conducted a full study yet, but some inferences were made based on this particular pilot study. So there was a confusion with 3 rows. Like if I triggered A point and after that I'll trigger B or C, then they'll be confused like which one is working. So it's better to have 2 rows rather than be having 3 rows. So like 2 rows can be tested for the further studies, and like 4 actuators in a row is easily differentiable with respect to the position on the hand, which we speculated in the beginning of the study. So they were able to relate by the position of their hand, like so this is top, so they were able to sense that something is vibrating on the top part of the body or the bot of the hand, or bottom or left or right part of the hand. So that was some quality that was some things that I noticed through the data sheet. And I also got some qualitative feedback from the participants, like change is easy to identify rather than static vibration. So suppose if I'm like continuously vibrating 2 motors, then if they lose their concentration, it's really difficult for them to then identify which motors are actually vibrating right now. So change is like a bit easy to identify rather than static vibration. And there was a confusion while consciously converting the vibration positions into the addresses. Like if I'm telling them like which motor is vibrating, then they were like thinking key which row, then top and all. So all that conversion was creating a cognitive load in their mind. So work ahead conducting. So I want to conduct this study with at least 5 users, and hopefully I'll be doing it by next week. And then only like we can analyze the data from the study that we will be conducting. Then based on the study, like we can refine the haptic patterns and like evolve our mapping strategies based on the analysis and user feedback that we are getting through the study. And also we can also test the effectiveness of this particular system in by putting it in a context rather than uh, no, just testing the effectiveness of the data transmission. So the conclusion, this project aimed to explore the potential of haptic feedback technology for interactive experiences with digital information. So through data analysis, the sleeve's potential for information transmission can be easily evaluated. Further research can focus more on refining haptic patterns and exploring user adaptation, leading to improved accessibility and usability in digital interactions.